Assalamu alaikum and welcome back to the Aleph Podcast. We had a little bit of a break. I was traveling, but now I'm back. And with me I have Mohsin Raza Shah.
Hello.
Kaise ho?
A1, all good. Good to be here, man. Thank you for having me.
No worries. And for those who might not be familiar with him, he's a great session guitarist and musician in general and producer. Works with Rahat Fateh Ali Khan at the moment, as well as Azan Sami Khan.
Indeed.
And
I've got Ali Azmat.
Of
He's
course, Ali
a dear
Azmat.
friend of mine.
Yeah.
And Ali Tariq, one of my dear friends.
it's quite a lineup.
Yeah, it's a fun
Keeps you
lineup.
busy.
Keeps me busy.
Yeah.
With the live shows, definitely does keep me busy.
Yeah.
And different genres altogether.
Yeah.
Expand across. So
Yeah.
some of it is for the soul. Some of it is for the thrill of it. Like
Yeah.
just playing guitar in front of an audience.
Yeah.
So it's been good. It's been busy.
That sounds awesome. And so why don't we start with like the beginnings, like when you first picked up the guitar and
Beginnings.
what your memories of that
Alright.
are. Like what inspired you कि मतलब guitar बजाना?
So it was definitely the music that I was listening to. My dad kind of showed me Pink Floyd when I was really young, Stevie Wonder, all the good music, and I'm kind of lucky that he did. He was an arts graduate, so being exposed to that music, growing up, I started digging deeper into it, and then the deeper you go into classic rock, the louder the guitar gets, like the distortion starts to get cranked, and I'm like, okay, let's get into some System of a Down and
This is like you were a teenager at this point?
Younger. I'd say 11, 12 is when I was more directed towards the music. 14 is when I would say I got my first guitar. And well, actually not 14. I had like a toy guitar.
Yeah.
But uske saath seekh ke eventually I got a proper Yamaha gig maker set.
Okay.
And started distortion full, bass full, all the way, started rocking out. And eventually with that attitude, I started working at a couple of places. Made a band with my brother, Arsul, and my cousin, Mustafa. We put together this band called All Figer Iron, which is very funny, but it was just the three of us, and we were like, we're going to make music, drop C tuning, all the way, and we used to be riffing. That was primarily the development phase for me.
Yeah.
After which I started playing with a few, like different music. When you start playing with different musicians, it's kind of when you understand where you stand and what you have to learn.
Yeah.
And I started doing that at Bass Rock Cafe, which is this cafe, really fun institution for me at least. Like I used to go there, just jam out all day, all night. And that's where I started getting more fluent in the language of music. And then Bass Rock Cafe also
Around what year are we talking at this point?
13, 14. And I was super young. Parents didn't want me to go out at night इतना late. Defense में basement में आप रात को अपने बच्चे को तो नहीं छोड़ना चाहोगे. लेकिन they were brave enough to not send me, but like allow me to go there.
Yeah.
And that's where I learned most of the stuff that I did. Production wise, signal chain wise, because that doubled as a performance venue and a recording space as well, right?
Yeah.
So they had this mixer which used to connect to the computer, and I started to learn routing.
उस वक्त कौन चला रहा था?
उस वक्त नया acquire किया था हसन ने. It was I remember Faisal Bhai used to have it earlier.
Yes.
And right after that, when he sold it to Hassan, that's when a few of my friends, Arash, Asher, and all these guys, they used to have this band. I forgot the name, but they used to be jamming there as well. And I had gone for a recording. At one point, they spotted me and they were like, oh, why don't you come around, jam with us as well? As a young guitar player, seeing Marshall stacks in front of you, I'm like, I want to plug into those. So that just sort of started happening. I started understanding my tone a little better. And then that's kind of where the session journey began.
Yeah.
People used to come in, start playing guitar in-house for, let's say, projects, and then I used to be spotted and they'd be like, oh, mera gana baja lo, ya main isi venue pe agle weekend show kar raha hu, wo bajaoge.
Achha.
Then that kind of brought me into the scene or the industry or the underground music world.
Yeah.
All the underground
I think that's probably around when I first came across.
That was when Jambro came.
came.
Jambro changed the scene.
Yeah.
But I feel like that Jambro went in December 20... France, yes.
That literally मैं लोगों को बताता हूँ ना कि मैं लंदन से आया था around 2013.
Yeah.
And I just knew a handful of musicians. I knew like Sikandar Kamandar boys. I knew Ali
Alright.
Sohail.
Yeah.
But when that Jamro event happened at Farhan's, I think 2016 के end में था,
Yes.
suddenly my universe of musicians that I knew increased like
The pool
tenfold.
Yeah.
Like,
There's a lot of music here, man. It's all happening in basements
Yeah.
because nobody likes loud neighbors.
yeah.
But इसी चक्कर में वो बेसमेंट में काफी दफा रह भी जाता है
हाँ.
कि लोग निकल के म्यूजिक वहीं रह गया.
हाँ.
But that event was actually a canon event for me. That I mean, it was recorded, it was broadcasted, and it was on YouTube, and I got seen, got some recognition. They were like, "Oh, lambe balon wala boy kaun tha?" And that once that question started to come about, it was good. 2017 is when I did Darvesh.
Oh yes, I remember.
So that was one of my bands with very good friends of mine, Zain and Rafe, and we had an entire team
Yeah.
of 10 people. Of 10 people, logistical nightmare.
Was the band in existence before Pepsi, or was it made for the competition?
So it's actually really funny. I was driving about with a friend of mine, and she told me, "Oh, my friends are doing this band called Darvesh, and it's really cool." And I'm like, "Oh, that's interesting, man. I'll look into it." And I never seemed to just go about looking into something that's happening in Karachi. So I was like, "Okay, haan, dekh lenge," wali mentality. And then when I went to Bass Rock Cafe, I found out that they're recording there, and I had gone after quite a bit.
Yeah.
So I met the boys. And I played on one of the tracks, and they were like, "Yo, this is sick, man. You want to record it?" I was like, "Yeah." I was actually just dropping by, and I ended up recording something for them, and they were like, "Oh, let's work on some music." And they were really enthusiastic about it, and that was something I was lacking at that phase in my life. So I was like, "Yeah, I need this. I need that push." So day in, day out, पहुंच गए guitar लेकर. Spending time with the instrument was my motive. But it started to manifest into this band, and then we got another player in, and then we got another vocalist in, and then we got drummer in, and then as I started becoming like a serious thing until we started getting gigs.
Yeah.
After our first gig is when Pepsi was coming out. They were like, they did the entire challenge and everything, put this music out. फिर उसके बाद then Darvesh kind of became like a Pepsi band. Because we had just gotten into existence. They had gotten into existence, I joined them, and then Pepsi jumped in.
Yeah.
So you could say, we weren't noticeable before Pepsi.
Yeah, yeah.
But they did exist. They had a few originals down the pipeline that I started to work on immediately when I joined the band. So yeah, I guess.
And how was the Pepsi experience then?
Ooh. The amount of times I've been asked that on a Pepsi set. कैसा रहा आज तक का आपका सफर Pepsi के साथ?
Honey, but it's not a Pepsi set, so now you can say whatever.
So, I mean, shaping event of my life. पहली बार production की मैं दूसरी तरफ खड़ा हूँ. Like cameras on me. Little pressure to record live. I mean, I had been doing studio work at Bass Rock Cafe before, so I was a little comfortable with tempos and metronomes and everything, but in-ear monitoring पे पहली दफ़ा बजाना live, वो भी record हो रहा है और आपके पास एक ही chance है. तो ये तो थोड़ा सा pressure था Pepsi का. But otherwise, the process of it, I wouldn't say it's as real, or I wouldn't say, I would say कि थोड़ी सी artificialness है उस पूरे process में. And वो बेचना कुछ और चाह रहे हैं, वो music नहीं बेचते.
Of course.
So that is something that hit me later on.
Yeah.
When you're in it, you're very like devoted. You're like, man, jeet ke aunga.
It's exciting.
Later on, I'm like, what's the competition, man? Like, I found out that this was a platform. And you'd be surprised. Alhamdulillah, having done the work that I have done, I still get recognition for Darvesh because it was on television. Someone's car broke down and I was there to help them, and सामने कोई चौकीदार आता है और मुझे बोलता है कि मैंने आपको टीवी पे देखा है. So that's the power of Pepsi.
That is, I mean, the marketing giant that it is.
So all props to that. Besides that, the music curation progress and everything was fun. I got to work with a lot of people. I got to work with the team that was involved. We had Essen Bari on board. We had Faisal Afi on board. They were really helpful. And I was the guitar player जिसके पास board नहीं होता था, pedal board. तो मैं एक patch cable छोटे all those pedals would be scattering about on stage. And it was really fun. It was a really big learning experience for me on how
Yeah.
the music business works.
Right.
Not on how music should be made or
Yeah.
what the
Yeah.
process should be.
Huh.
It was just how you're supposed to sell it or what sells it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that Pepsi was good and bad, you can say.
तो उसके बाद what was the next major?
उसके बाद Pepsi put us on a contract.
Yeah.
I was young, I was getting some money. I was like, yeah, man, this is good. They gave us shows. We performed some good events after that, and music started to become a steady stream of income for someone who had not seen this happen.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, I want to dwell further into this. So I did a couple of recordings, shoots, beach mein, and then we took our album. We decided Darvesh wanted to do an album. We took our album to Saad Hayat. This was the second canon event in my life.
Yeah.
So Saad Hayat's production studio, I remember going in there for a meeting, and we're all just chilling, hanging out.
Yeah.
And it was, you can say, a very funny meeting because I was having a very different situation on the phone, and Saad Bhai was there. He's like, "Ho kya raha hai? Matlab, kaun log aaye?" But then in the end, he heard our music and he was like, "Yaar, acha scene hai. Kar lo." He's like, "Who wants to lay down tracks first?" Like me. So I saw a studio, took my amp, cranked it all the way, started recording. Got like 5 or 6 tracks done within the week. Like start to finish, all guitars, fillers, solos. कुछ गाने बने हुए थे और हमें सिर्फ बजाने थे. मैंने जाके बजा दिए. फिर उनको ट्वीक करते 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 कभी ये पार्ट इसने बजाया, किसी ने 10 लोग थे ना, कोई अच्छी चीज़ बजा देता था ना, बाकी लोग अप्रिशिएट करते करते अपनी 9 चीज़ें भी चेंज कर देते तो गाने ही अलग हो गया. फिर वो बोलते यार इसको एक और, should we make this into another track or should it be the same? But that album never came out for reasons that are multiple reasons, I would say. But Saad Bhai, he spotted me and he was like, "Oh, yaar, do you wanna do one track?" I was like, "Yeah, for sure." He's like, "This is something I've been working on. Do you wanna do it?" And I was like, "Okay." It had Ajay, it had Bradley, and Ali Safir, Saad Bhai, and me. And we shot it within the studio, couple of cameras, nice small video. But we realized that we could play music with each other comfortably. So then one of these days, Saad Bhai was like, "Hey, I'm working on some commercial project. Would you be down to do sessions?" Like, absolutely. फिर मेरा production world में the second big step, entry. Okay, I learned a lot of Logic Pro. I learned a lot of recording techniques, miking techniques, drum miking techniques. Saad Bhai was a great help, and like he had the same energy that a lot of producers I have worked with lack to search the tone. कि वहाँ amp रखा है, तार यहाँ आ रही है, mic इस तरह रखेंगे, okay, we can use this signal. And I mean, it's a guitar track. Not a lot of people pay attention to it. वो compress करके भाई guitar बज रहा है. But Saad Bhai was a person who kind of helped me creatively. And we designed tones, we fought, and we did God knows what. But वहाँ बजाने के बाद मुझे start हुआ कि I got more noticeable in the industry. Saad Bhai took me to some Mirage gigs as well. And it was वहाँ से when I started playing with Mirage, a few artists noticed me. Alicia के साथ एक गाना किया, फिर Jimmy के साथ किया, फिर Zoe के साथ किया. फिर कोई भी project आता था, Saad Bhai used to be like, "Oh, we have a guitarist if you want to hear him." I used to be like, "Oh, this is what I would play on the track." And
अक्सर they'd want you.
They'd be like, "हाँ, if it sounds good there and then, हाजिर चीज़ है." Like आपने किसी को बोला गिटार बजाओ, उसने बजा दिया. तो and honestly, studio recording taught me a lot of guitar technique,
of course,
of muting technique and picking techniques and just the preciseness of it.
Because when you're hearing yourself back,
absolutely,
you can hear every little mistake as well, right?
Absolutely. And then when you have Saad Bhai on the console, he's like, "Wait, again. And doing it again and again is trial and errors. I feel like the best way to polish your technique.
बिल्कुल.
तो उससे करते करते मैंने आर्टिस्ट के साथ बजाने लग गया. एक फिर मैंने ट्रैक किया गंभी के साथ. Legend. I'm still in awe of his skills. Every time he plays, I'm like, oh man. गंभी के साथ एक ट्रैक किया, and that track got the attention of Khan Sahab. In I think 2018, and that's when we started working together. Gambi he pitched it to him, and then he was like, "Oh, this is a guitar player." Major props to him for getting me in there. But he was like, "This is a guitar player. This is how he plays," and he played Khan Sahab the track, and they were like, "Okay, this is interesting, and we can work with this." But during that time, जब music नहीं बन रहा था, साद भाई के पास सुबह 9-10 बजे 11 बजे तक we used to walk in. प्रोजेक्ट आया, PSL let's say चल रहा है, तो प्रोजेक्ट आया आज इसका और इसका मैच है, 15 सेकंड का रेडियो स्पॉट चाहिए. तो 15 सेकंड में किसी को हंसाना है या आपको कोई चीज़ बेचनी है. It's like a 20-second typer jingle.
Yeah.
So that's when my creativity started to flow.
Yeah.
So I was like, yaar, happy, बच्चों का jingle है इस तरह. So I'm like, okay, bring the uke and bring this. And then Saad Bhai used to come up with something on the keys and he's like, what can you do with this? And it was just like a mass production of jingles and advertisements. And essentially what I learned most from that was triggering emotions through a few notes or something. वो किया, उसके बाद production में the more I started to work, the more responsibilities I started to receive from Saad Bhai. He was like, oh, how about you produce this one as well? Like, why don't you engineer this one? Vocal track करने आ रहा है, कोई record कर ले. Vocal track कर लिए, drums track कर लिए, करते started becoming like more of a thing that I could do on my own.
Yeah.
Then around 2019 is when I started touring with Khan Saab. The first touring experience internationally. Really fun.
For those who may not know, Khan Saab is Rahat.
Saad Rahat Ali Khan Saab. The great.
Yes.
So he's been a huge guiding light as well. Musical genius. I mean, he's got the heritage and he's got the learning. And I was really young, man. I was like 20 when I joined. And बाकी सारे जितने थे वो सब अपने फील्ड में जो like if you look at any musician in that band, he is at the top of his field. And then there's me, this guy who's just like 20. आप बजाने पे छोड़ दो या मेरे गिटार पे छोड़ दो या रिग पे छोड़ दो, आप एज पे आ जाओ ना तो बंदा बोलता है यार ये कहाँ से आ गया. But everyone in that band as well was so kind and patient, specifically patient with me because they adjusted to my learning curve, stepped down for a second and literally taught me things that I did not know.
तो तुम्हारे पहले कौन था गिटार प्लेयर?
Guitars पे तनवीर हुसैन खान साहब थे, I think. And फिर उसके बाद Kishore Bhai was playing the acoustic and Salman Ashraf was on bass. But when I joined... So
how much space did you have to bring in parts that you felt were you know?
Yeah, so I'll get to this because when I joined in, Khan Saab was trying to do something new with his music. I mean, Rahat Fateh Ali Khan had put out so much Qawwali music that had not been brought to the fame that the Bollywood music has dominated in Rahat's performances.
Yes.
So when Khan Saab used to tell us, we created this band called the Fusion Band. So usme we used to take purani Qawwali like Saanson Ki Mala, Ni Saiyon Aasan, which was from the Michael Brooks album. I really like that track. And old Qawwalis that had not really been performed in a theatrical manner. We had Harun and Shahrun, excellent musicians. We had Gambi and Kishore Bhai. Kishore Bhai was on bass this time. I picked up the electric guitar, Harun was on the acoustic guitar. So with this shorter... Oh, we had Bunny, Joshua on keys as well. Waqas on sitar.
Yeah.
We had, what's his name? Asif Ali on tabla. And Joji on dholak. And this band was smaller, more streamlined band, so there's a lot less playing. So everyone got the room. Yeah. And Khan Saab is very accommodating to a new sound, right? We did 18 days of straight rehearsals at Gambi's. बस डे इन डे आउट, सुबह पहुंचे, खाना ऑर्डर किया, थोड़ी सी लड़ाई की आपस में, कॉफ़ी पी, गाने बजाए, तुम ये नहीं कर रहे, सही नहीं कर रहे, पॉलिटिक्स की ऊपर जाके, अभी मेरे फैमिली राइट, सब एक दूसरे को छेड़ रहे हैं, तंग कर रहे हैं. बट 18 days in Khan Saab devoted his time, for not all of it but most of it, he devoted his time to help us create something new with his existing music. So he was really supportive when 16 bar piece came in, Mohsin bhai aap isko 32 kar de. And I'm like, man, like that's a compliment for me. If someone wants me to play longer, something, that's a compliment for me. And he was really supportive. Always wanted me to bring in new tones, new elements. He's like, is pe thoda sa. He loved that there was distortion. I mean, I hope he did. But from what I know, he enjoyed the distortion parts of it. We did a really cool version of Teri Meri, the Bollywood song. It was just a different approach to all of his music, which was received well by the audience.
Yeah.
I think so. I hope so. We got a bunch of shows.
Yeah.
And the act did sell.
Yeah.
And पहले मैंने ये fusion act बजाया. And सिर्फ fusion act बजाया. But then by the end of it, Khan Sahab was like, do you want to play the other two acts? And I'm like, of course. I mean, but with those two acts, it's like if you're doing those, you can't do anything else. It's a full-time thing.
Right.
Khan Sahab performs year-round.
Yeah.
Internationally, locally, there's no off-season.
Yeah.
So if you're doing Khan Sahab's full lineup, even if you want to do something else, I don't think you'll have the time.
Yeah. So it's like a full-on commitment.
Full-on commitment. So I did that for a year. 2020 was slow.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, but 2021, I did the acoustic guitar set with Kishore Bhai on bass. So Salman Ashraf was not there. Kishore Bhai was playing bass. I played acoustic. We did weddings, corporate events, commercial events, all of that stuff. But by the end of it, after the UK bit, I was like, I can't keep up with this. And then Salman Ashraf was also coming back, so I was like, okay. I directed my attention elsewhere. Then, 2021 is when I started working with Ali Tariq. He was my next long-term companion.
Yeah.
Because me and him also traveled, toured quite a bit.
Yeah.
हमने initially तो acoustic setup किया था. So he had his main band. And then he had the acoustic band, which was me, him, and Jason Anthony on percussion. And we used to do these small private events from time to time. And then later on, our chemistry started to build. He was like, why don't you join the full band? Okay. Then that's where we started making music together. That has also been fun. Different approach to music.
Yeah, I'm very different from the Rahat Fateh Ali thing,
absolutely.
Of course.
I mean, you could say it's similar in the sense because with private events, it's a lot of people pleasing.
Yeah.
But once you get the voice out there and the recognition out there, you can pretty much force feed your music. Like,
just want to rewind it back a little bit. I mean, obviously with the Ustad Rahat Fateh Ali Khan Sahab, you've played all over the world.
Oh, yes.
So maybe if you can share some of that experience, how is it like touring the world? I mean, there's not too many. There's basically Rahat Sahab hain aur Atif hai, jo Pakistani music mein world tour kar rahe hain. I mean, Ali Azmat, who you also play with, gets a lot of foreign shows.
As well, and there's a lot of commercial viability now for Pakistani
It's building,
music.
but these two are like the top, right?
Yeah, year round, on and off, they're going to be in and out.
So how is that like? I mean, you go and meet. Are you mostly engaging with the diaspora when you're in foreign countries, or do you get interest from the foreigners as well?
So with Khan Sahab's music, it's I'll tell you, it's the closest thing to home for a lot of people abroad. And that just does not go for Pakistanis. It's anyone who is connected to Asian culture. Bengalis, Indians, Pakistanis, Nepali, Afghanis, all of these people are so enthusiastic about Khan Sahab's music. Because one way or the other, either it's Punjabi or maybe it's the
we're
Urdu.
Part of the same connected space,
we're all
right?
connected, right? So these guys are always very receptive to Khan Sahab's music. They would come into the shows. I mean, we, alhamdulillah, sold out Wembley twice.
That's amazing.
We sold out O2 last year. And lots of arenas, lots of big theaters and historic venues that it all happens so fast that it's like a blur because our routines like Friday, let's say our tour first show is on Friday, right? Wednesday we'll fly into the city. रात को पहुंचेंगे, check-in करेंगे. Thursday को briefing होगी. Friday we play the show, go back to the hotel, pack our bags, check in, go to the airport, check in for our flight, get to the next city, take the flight, get to the next city. And it's a big band, right? So Khan Sahab travels with about 24 people, 25 people as band members. Because there's 3 segments, right? The fusion, Bollywood, and then Qawwali. So the members rotate, but some don't.
Right.
So it's a big band, lots of coordination, lots of people. कोई late उठा, किसी को shower में देर हो गई, ये हो गया, करते करते your day is occupied, right? So if by Friday is over, Saturday you reach the next city, same routine, repeat the drill. Sunday, repeat the drill. Monday you reach the city where you're going to have the show. Next Friday, then it's your time off. Agar weekday mein show nahi aaya to, which is usually the case. So it's a lot of travel. Teaches you a lot about international stages and performing etiquette.
Yeah.
cable management
Yes,
for me.
yes, yes.
Okay, I used to leave my spools just like lying there, right?
Yeah.
If sound check ho gaya, guitar stand पे रखा, Pakistani भाई रख दिया studio.
हाँ.
The tech comes to me, he's like, you gotta stop doing that. I'm like, I'm sorry. Okay, he taught me how to roll a cable and mount it, properly put it on stage.
Yeah.
And this one guy, Mark, I think he was so sweet. Every time I used to do my cables and I used to run them by, I used to come and nicely tape them up for me. And he was like, okay, so you don't step on them.
Nice.
But I learned a lot about how big stages operate from that process. So it's a very, you could say lucrative, but interesting process.
Yeah.
You get to learn a lot about the musicians that you're traveling with.
Yeah.
You're away from home, it's a foreign country. You're under management. You have to be responsible.
Yeah.
You can't go full rock and roll all the time, which I try to. But it's just something that I never dreamed I would be doing professionally.
Yeah, I mean that's the other thing. Like when you started playing and you started taking music seriously, what did you think you wanted to do with it? You know,
this is what I wanted to do with it, but not in this way. Of course, I had a different mindset towards it. But you know how like a chain links with one another, and aista, you just progress. What a God has planned for you is something much more powerful. So I was always like, man, I want to be on stage, rocking out. 20,000 people, 30,000 people. That happened. नहीं वो नहीं हुआ. मैं बैठ के बजाऊंगा most of the shows. लेकिन उससे फिर आहिस्ता like once you start doing it, it kind of just you get into the feel of it and it becomes effortless. Because if you think about it, the music that I'm playing with Khan Sahab is very chordally, modally and tonally technical. That man knows the fifth and the note and the quarter note and the time wise. He knows everything.
He is properly trained.
And he has the processing power to do it on the fly. In order to keep up with that, that was the main challenge generally for being able to be performing with someone so skilled. That was the real challenge. And
everyone else in his band.
Everyone else.
You mentioned they're at the top of the game.
But if it weren't for them, शायद मैं नहीं बजा पाता. सिखाया, काफी सिखाया कि यहाँ ये है या ये है. We had a very different performance pattern, right? Like when you imagine performing at a big venue, you think in-ear monitors and clicks and cues and like tracks that are going to tell you anything and everything. Like an international performance sound, but this is Khan Sahab, right? All of that happens inside his head. And
you just have to keep up.
You have to keep up with him. And you need to understand his temperament as well on stage. So you have to adjust to it. From what I remember, what I was talking about, you have to kind of adjust to it in the sense that he will come up with something there on the fly. And you just have to be ready to understand what he's going to do with it. Like, try to be 2 steps ahead. You can't. But in order to cope up with it, you have to think, okay, we're in this scale, now he's gone to this scale. So in the last song, he went to that note. So you'll have to, it's just like an entire plus minus in your head.
Right.
On the fly, which is challenging, but...
Is that a feature of all of his shows or is it a mood-based thing?
So with the Qawwali segment that he would get into, Qawwali is very spiritual and कोई आमद हुई उस वक्त किसी शेर की जो वो पेश करना चाहें और किस अंदाज में करना चाहें वो तो उनके ऊपर है. लेकिन if he feels the need to do so, he will. And you better be able to cope up with that. Varna, he will look at you because surprisingly, it's so loud on stage. We have like 6 hamnawa, tabla, dholak, drums, acoustic guitar, bass, 2 keyboard players, saxophone, sitar. It's an ensemble, right? And
you guys are playing with like wedges or in-ears?
We have wedges. Now, recently, the 2022 के बाद हमारा सारा in-ears पे चला गया.
अच्छा.
फिर side fill भी होते थे. अब side fill भी नहीं है. But इतना loud है. लेकिन Khan Sahab's got the ear, right? So once you start playing, he has an ear out for you. And I've tried कि मैं कहीं because वो गाने भी इतने अब सही सबको आते हैं और मैं नया आया हूँ तो मैंने पहले sheets रखना start की. फिर मैंने बोला पेपर नहीं इस्तेमाल करते, नॉट एनवायरमेंटली फ्रेंडली, लेट्स गो फॉर लाइक एन आईपैड. मैंने आईपैड रखना स्टार्ट किया और किशोर भाई मुझे बोलते रहते थे, ही वाज लाइक मैन व्हाट इज दिस, मैन लाइक जस्ट लिसन, डोंट लुक, लिसन, लाइक ओके. एंड देन व्हेन आई स्टार्टेड डूइंग दैट, it's when it like kind of became part of the process. Okay, nahi, you have to know the songs. You have to know what every possible direction the song can go in.
Yeah.
Because there is infinite, but there's also limited to a few.
Yeah.
According to his preference, his style. किसी दिन खान साहब का गला he does transpose certain times. He will tell us. Transposing is actually a very interesting skill I learned from this. कि जो भी बजा रहे हो हाफ स्टेप नीचे बजा लो. अब भाई मैं तो ओपन कॉर्ड्स बजा रहा था. अब मैं क्या करूँ, हाफ स्टेप डाउन ट्यून करूँ नहीं. So positions, bar chord, and I'm a drop D guitar player. A lot of people will disagree with me, but I am primarily a drop D guitar player. I'm sorry. I figured out some weird funky positions that kind of taught me new ways to approach the guitar and made me use my thumb like from the back, like twisting it all the way over. तो ट्रांसपोज करना बड़ा एक
अलग ही सीन है बिल्कुल.
लाइव के लिए तो बहुत ही एक जरूरी चीज है. Keyboard players have it easy, right? You can play the same thing.
Yeah, it's just moving it up.
For guitar players, you either change the tuning, but even then you can't get some of the voicings right. Like I like this really nice 11th voicing on the bar, and I'm trying to do that. होता नहीं है on standard. So transposing on the fly became a very good part of my skill set that I would say कि हाँ चलो. If something or the other, this is something that I will take away from it from a lifetime. Other than amongst other things, of course. But it's that there's other features of his live act is that it's a live act. Like purely अगर मैं live की essence में हम लोग बजाते हैं और भी bands के साथ, but इसमें आपको एक chemistry, it's like a breathing. Gambi always says it's like a breathing organism on stage. We all have to be in sync. We all have to breathe together. And doing that with 24 people is fun. Challenging, but fun.
I mean, I can't even imagine. Must be a massive learning experience. In terms of like the audience response and the audience like quality, like where have you enjoyed playing the most for them?
London. London has always been a very colorful city. Specifically for Asian colors.
And just for music in general. I mean, I saw Hans Zimmer at the O2.
Sick, man.
And
you were also at Robert Plant.
Roger Waters.
Roger
Waters and Hans Zimmer like back to back.
Crazy.
In the same venue.
That's crazy.
You know. And I think O2 Arena में आप लोगों ने भी बजाया.
Yes. O2 is big, man.
And the way it's like, you know, the view is clear from any point.
Absolutely.
It's a really nice venue, actually.
I would agree. We didn't do the center stage thing. We did it like at the far end.
Right.
So it was a different setup.
So Roger Waters had the center stage.
And the big SMD going.
And Hans had the far stage.
Nice.
But, I mean, venues don't get much bigger than that.
Absolutely.
You know? So, and what I was going to say is London seems to have a great music listening appreciation amongst, you know.
I actually felt that in the show we did with Ali Azmat this year in the Indigo at the O2, which is like the smaller theater inside. Usme we had a lot of I don't want to use the word, but we had a lot of people who are not from Asia.
Right.
Just coming there with their friends, like bring your friend to work day or something. And it's a rock and roll show. We were playing nice guitar. I'm the only guitar player when it comes to riffing over there. Ali Bhai plays, let's say, 30 or 40% of the songs on the second guitar. Mikal joined us on stage this time. That was actually really fun. He was in the audience.
Oh, nice.
And Ali Bhai was like, Vicky, aajo. He joined us on stage for like a good 6-8 songs. Sikandar Mufti was there too. He joined us on stage for the final Just By Junoon and all of that. But in essence, if you think about it, it's 4 rock and roll guys on stage playing a rock and roll show. So the language doesn't matter. I feel like the music has so much emotion that the guy will eventually understand. It is what it makes you feel, right? So
and rock has its own thing.
Absolutely.
So, but with nice segue into Ali Azmat. What are the differences between playing a big ensemble and a more Qawwali based thing than this thing?
So I have my reservations in the sense that Khan Sahab is a big production. And मैं tour कर रहा हूँ तो हमारे साथ है ना, we all dress the same. We have like uniform. And for someone who was growing up listening to Black Sabbath and Stairway to Heaven, Led Zeppelin, ये वो hoo-ha, seeing those rock and roll guys, putty हुई jeans, ये guitar पहना है, and I'm like, यार मैं तो waistcoat पहन के chair पे बैठा हूँ. But when no disrespect whatsoever, like, I mean, I enjoy that altogether, but when I started doing Ali Azmat's thing, और मैंने क्या कहते हैं कपड़े फर्क पहनना स्टार्ट किए ना कि बैगी जीन्स पहनी है ओवर साइज टी शर्ट बीनी ऑन टॉप एंड आई जस्ट लाइक गिटार सुपर लो एंड आई एम द ओनली गिटार प्लेयर इन द बैंड विद Ali bhai as well. I mean, we play some of the same parts. Ali bhai is always pushing me to do like solos and jam out.
But basically you have to carry a lot more of the
carry a lot more, but Junoon songs are so much fun to play.
Yeah.
They're of course, when you compare them to Khan Saab's, it's much simpler.
Yeah.
But the simpler things are sometimes the hardest to do. Right? Sayoni is 2 notes.
Yeah.
But you can play those 2 notes in a million ways.
Of course.
So those songs, I don't know what magic Salman Ahmed had, man. Those 2 notes, I played them anywhere in the world. And I would hear...
Yeah, like I often, when, obviously I grew up listening and loving Junoon. But when I got into more... Western bands and stuff, then for a time I was like, acha, Salman Ahmed is not that great. But then when you start learning the songs and then actually understanding the intricacy, then you're like, actually there's a lot more to this,
हमारे Indianapolis वाले शो में दोस्त आ गए थे फाद भाई and he was like, यार मुझे है ना मुक गए नहीं एक गाना जुनून का वो सुनना है. then भानु भाई like, okay, let's do it. हम लोग होटल रूम में थे, हमने बस chords निकाले, वो chord मैंने बजाई, मैंने बोला such a dreamy chord, why have I not used this before? Because that's when it hit me, like my playing style is not defined, I am merely just a reflection of everything that has influenced me. And कभी कोई दिख रहा है, कभी कोई दिख रहा है, कभी कोई दिख रहा है. तो वो मैंने chord जब सुनी, मैंने बोला यार ये chord मैंने कभी इस्तेमाल, मैंने उस दिन के बाद से वो chord बहुत दफा यूज किए. It's just this weird dissonance that you can hear. You're just like like a weird odd shape.
Yeah.
And it's a chromatic pattern altogether that flows down on the last 3 frets. And I'm like, yeah, it's something so simple.
It's just for fun. Why don't you show us what chord you're talking about?
It's a C minor, but it goes like. And then. It's just simple. So.
That's such a nice chord. It sounds so nice on this.
Oh, if you just bar that here, it's like. Dark, very odd sounding. It's got this 11th added in here. So it just makes it a little more dreamier. And I'm like, man, how can someone come up with that? Like, why didn't I come up with that? Why didn't I manage to play dun 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 dun? Like, I mean, he did it first. But it's the detail that he put into it as a guitar player that I trust. When I hear him, I trust him more as a guitar player. So those songs, and plus you have more freedom on stage, right? We're a 5-piece band. We have Ashik Sahab on dholak as well. Yeah. Kami on drums.
And you're not on a click or anything.
No, we're not on a click.
It's just a khula rock.
I'll tell you something very interesting. Actually, me, Kami, Manu Bhai and Ashik Sahab as a band have not been in a jam room together once.
Wow.
Ever.
You've just played on stage.
I started with Ali Azmat in this way. Momo had moved to the States and it was peak COVID time, like around August, 14 August का show आया था Ali Bhai का live stream. Live stream gigs were just coming up. It was like becoming a thing. This is the new normal. Yeah. So Candy did that and Momo नहीं था. Gambi को Ali Bhai ने बोला कि यार तुम बजाओगे? Gambi ने बोला हाँ बजाऊंगा. He asked Gambi, like, oh, once again, Gambi the plug, thank you, Gambi. He's like, oh, it's a guitar player है? कहता हाँ एक है लड़का. So मैं नंबर दिया and शानू की कॉल आती है, शानू भाई की, our manager. And शानू भाई is like, बजाओगे ये वो? हाँ okay done. He's like हाँ बस कल आ जाना गंबी के पास, बैठते हैं. I thought बैठना मतलब रिहर्स करेंगे, कुछ करेंगे. हम गए बैठे, अली भाई से कोई गाने आते हैं. अब me being an underground musician coming from basements of Karachi, I have played Junoon with any and every vocalist that has been doing covers, right? So I'm like आते हैं. आपको किस की में बजाने हैं आप ये बताएं. अली भाई like okay फिर कल शो बजाते हैं. करके हम चले गए. And I'm just like what? कल मैं बजा रहा हूँ. तो I took out some of his live videos. Coincidentally एक लाइव स्ट्रीम थी उनकी कॉन्सर्ट की जिसमें मोमो के गिटार पे है ना कैमरा ऐसे लगा हुआ था एंड आई एम लाइक ओए यही देखना है मुझे आई टुक माय गिटार एंड आई सब छाप लिया एंड द फर्स्ट शो आई प्लेड इट्स ऑनलाइन एज वेल एंड Ali bhai was like oh यार तुम्हें तो आते हैं गाने I'm like आते हैं he's like okay so if there's a show I'm like yeah let me know so that's when it started and then मनु भाई भी बजा चुके हैं अली भाई के साथ उनकी एल्बम भी रिकॉर्ड कर चुके हैं मनु भाई has been through the entire process so he knows it by heart and कुछ भी मुझे नहीं समझ में आता मैं उनसे पूछता था हम दोनों को नहीं समझ हम सुन लेते थे and all of that music is published ट्रैक्स में भी एक ही गिटार प्लेयर है आशिक साहब हैं जिन्होंने जुनून के साथ 34-35 साल से like 35 years he's been there throughout original recordings world tours
पूरी ग्रूव ही उनके
हाथ में तो if we do something wrong and he hears it he knows it right जहाँ वो हमें करेक्ट करना चाहेंगे ना वो उसी वक्त बोल देंगे यार हम उनकी बात को वैल्यू देंगे कि उन्होंने ही वो गाने like बजाए हैं क्रिएट किए हैं so इस सेंस में हम एक दूसरे we were covering up each other but then with everyone's skill set mine being the least it's rock and roll music, right? How hard is it to play rock and roll music? But with Kami on drums, it's a different feel altogether. And then wireless lag gaya, stage chota ho, bada ho, jo bhi ho, chalne ki jagah hai. We're just gonna be headbanging and rocking out. And Khan Sahab bhi mujhe ye karne dete the. Khan Sahab bolte the, teri meri ka solo hai na, tum wireless lagao. We put in a wireless in my tech rider. So that when I came and I did the solo, he would want me to walk up to him.
Front.
And ये चीज़ें हैं ना are like a common occurrence. It's not just a one song. With Ali Azmat, it's common occurrence. Then it's traveling with a 4-piece band. अभी जब हमने US का tour किया था उसमें 5-piece band. Sorry, Ashik Saab. Sorry, 5-piece band and my manager. So that's 6 people. We fit in 2 SUVs. Drove about 7,000-8,000 miles across the states. When जहाँ 6 घंटे से ज़्यादा ड्राइव होती थी हम फ्लाइट ले लेते थे जहाँ छोटी सफ़र होता था we just used to rent vehicles एक शहर से निकले दूसरे शहर पहुँच गए and sitting shotgun with Ali bhai or driving with him sitting shotgun and Kami and listening to music so that felt like a rock and roll band on the road चल भाई फ्लाइट से उतरो गिटार डालो गाड़ी में get to the hotel play the show because it was very self-organized because हमारे वहाँ पे individual promoters थे नहीं we had to book our own Airbnbs we had to book our own cars I mean it was taken care of but we had to do these things so we could in order for us to get to the next venue so felt like you know how you see rock and roll bands in the tour
but that's
bus?
awesome that you're getting to experience both ends of it you know
absolutely it's and then there's this other spectrum which is Ali Tariq's music जो कि पाकिस्तान में हम लोगों ने परफॉर्म किया 2-3 इंटरनेशनल शोज भी किए लेकिन Ali's music is an entirely different market that's like going into a very I mean his new album differs from his live stuff but I've been pushing him कि यार तुम अपना नई album भी live बजाओ because his music is really fun
and from what I understand there's also other parts of him जो अभी तक वो अभी you know he's not pursued that
absolutely
because I have a friend Zaryab who's a good friend of his
absolutely
वो बताता रहता है कि you know he's almost like you know when you get popular based on something sometimes you can feel boxed in
it does
and it takes a bit of courage to go beyond that
it's also courage it's also I mean you start to understand how the business works right I don't think a musician should be in charge of selling his stuff
should is a different game from what it is you know?
I don't think he should be in charge in the sense because he has such a emotional bias such a connection to what he's created that उसको वो बेचने का मूड ही नहीं है भाई उसने तो वो बनाया
आर्टिस्ट का वैसे तो काम होना चाहिए एक्सप्रेशन
absolutely
और फिर मार्केटर्स और बुकिंग एजेंट्स का काम है उसको ऑडियंस तक लाना
बट इन दिस इंडस्ट्री आप अगर एक आर्टिस्ट हो तो आप सब कुछ खुद करने की कोशिश कर रहे हो क्योंकि धोखे भी बहुत हैं and
plus इतने ही पैसे बन रहे हैं कि you want to cut out as many middlemen
absolutely
as you can right
but leave the artist to the art is what I would say is the best approach to making music because I haven't been able to like मैंने alhamdulillah काम किया लेकिन I haven't been able to put out any of my own music
that was going to be my next thing like
really?
when is Mohsin Raza the artist going to
show himself when are you guys letting me record
मैं तो तैयार हूँ आ जाओ
मैंने गाने हमारी I think इस दफा पहले भी बात हुई थी इस बारे में कि I have music made man I have things created and just like you said I do like the courage of seeing everything happening around me, and I fear कि मेरी चीज़ भी corrupt हो जाएगी शायद मेरी ज़रूरत के हिसाब से. What if I'm creating something that I have to end up selling it?
Right.
So I don't want to do that. I want to create music in a very comfortable space.
Yeah, but there's also the element, like, since you are lucky enough to have these shows and these gigs, maybe leave that as your bread and butter and just do music you want to make on the side. Bhale wo bike ya na bike, at least wo hai.
Agreed.
And maybe at some point uski audience khud bahut ban jayegi.
Yeah, man, you gotta push me to do this.
That's my
I've
game.
been meaning to put on like a little EP. थोड़ा सा तैयार है.
Yeah.
सुनाता रहता हूँ लोगों को riffs and pieces, but again, I'm learning more about myself each day, right?
Yeah.
I'm working and growing in this industry. I'm learning my limitations and abilities to commit to something.
Yeah.
Which from time to time can be hard. I feel like an album is something when I'm going to do when I'm doing absolutely nothing else. It needs my time.
This is my problem as well. Like, I think it's easier when you're in a band.
Yeah.
Because the other guys are pushing you कि अब इसको final करते हैं, अब निकालते हैं.
Push नहीं भी कर रहे हो तो keep up करना पड़ जाता है आपको.
But when it's your own thing, like I have some solo compositions and things, वो perfection के वो pursuit में वो delay होती जाता है,
पर वो पता है line भी draw करनी चाहिए.
Exactly.
That's where you need the producer.
Exactly. It's almost impossible to produce yourself.
Yeah. Absolutely. And then it's also impossible to like be an artist and go like, not impossible, but be an artist and go like, नहीं यार ये सही है बस चलेगा.
हाँ, there's letting go is something you have to learn.
Because I know a lot of soulless producers मेरी जिंदगी में, not taking any names of course, but जिनके साथ मैं मतलब पहला track take किया और उन्होंने बोला हाँ बस गाना डाना okay, rap next. And I'm like, man, I was just figuring the song out right now. अभी तो मैं सीख रहा हूँ. Like, give me at least an hour with it. But sometimes जो अगला बंदा ढूंढ रहा होता है ना, वहाँ your thoughts don't align. He's looking for something that you've already done. You're looking for something that he doesn't even care about.
Yeah.
Like, as long as his job is done, that's where I need the producer to come in.
Yeah. But what I find with, at least, the process of releasing your own music, उससे ये होता है कि because the albums that I have released with my band,
DA Method, right?
Yeah.
DA Method.
So with DA, we've done 3 albums, and now there's an album that's in production with
sweet.
Cosmic Gulabo.
Oh, heavy.
Which is Cosmic Fluid with Wajiha Naqvi.
Oh, sweet. Yes. I think I've been following that on the Aleph page, yes.
But what happens is, like, with each album, you put out whatever you're into at that point, whatever you're influenced by, you put it all into it. But then for the next album, you don't feel like, at least I don't feel like repeating myself.
Yeah.
So you're looking for new things or new chords or new scales to get into and stuff. But what happens when you don't release stuff for a long time is you get stuck, I find, in a certain vibe or in a zone.
I agree.
Or in certain sets of chords.
Licks,
जब तक वो अपने आप से निकालोगे नहीं, तो आगे नहीं बढ़ोगे.
That is actually very true, man. Licks, phrases, they can get stuck to your hand like glue. Like any day.
They become second nature, फिर वही निकल रहा होता है.
Absolutely. And इसमें मैं बहुत दफा फंसा भी हूँ, to be very honest. Like I've been playing recordings and when I hear them back, I'm like, अबे तो मैंने उधर भी बजाया था. फिर मैं सोचता रहता हूँ कोई पकड़ ना ले यार मुझे के. But I'm like, मैंने ही बजाया bro. I can play the same thing twice. It's not an issue. It's like there's 12 notes, man. Any song is every song if you think about it. If there's just 12 notes.
Yeah.
But yeah, you need to put out music in order to evolve altogether. Evolution in this sense is something that I have been struggling with altogether.
I mean, because also, I'm trying to put myself in your shoes for a second. Like, you were very good as a guitar player when you started. Like when you started touring with these guys, you were already at a certain level, which you could.
I was trying.
Like having jam with you, having seen you, I think, at least from the people out there, you were in the top bracket.
That means a lot.
Already, but then to go further from there can definitely be challenging.
It is. It is. And वो भी लग जाती है ना कि छाप भी लग जाती है कि आप इसके म्यूजिशियन हो, आप उसके म्यूजिशियन हो. नहीं यार,
Yeah.
मैं म्यूजिशियन हूँ यार.
Yeah.
मुझे उतना ही आता है बजाना जितना मुझे आता है. किसी के साथ बजाने से मुझे ज़्यादा नहीं आ गया. मुझे और बहुत चीज़ें मैंने सीखी, लेकिन जितना मुझे आता है ना वो उतना ही आता है as much as labor hours.
Yeah.
अगर मैं इसको बिल्कुल ही numerically streamline करूँ तो it's labor hours. Put in the good amount of hours into it. But it's also like directing that energy, right? Sometimes I'm going to be super consistent with my shows.
Yeah.
कि आप wake me up at any time and ask me to play any song by any artist, I can get that down, but then I'll be struggling to play to a click. Then when I'm in the room playing to a click, 3 or 4 takes later, I'm in my mojo, right? I got it going. कि 2-3 track निपटा दूंगा. तो उसके बाद live जाऊंगा, live click पे I'll be like, oh, anything goes off or anything changes, it kills your mood. So there's a very fine line between, well, I wouldn't say even fine line. There's a gray area within a gray area of a fine line of being a studio musician and being a live musician.
Yeah. I mean, so what do you think does it take to be successful at both? Because a lot of people are very good at one or the other. There's so many great live musicians जो सालों से बजा रहे हैं, लेकिन recordings में वो ज़्यादा उन्होंने कुछ काम नहीं किया. And there's a lot of the other way around.
Absolutely.
As well, you know.
इसमें मैं साउंड पर मैं इस बात से डिसएग्री करूँगा कि स्टूडियो म्यूजिशियन लाइव नहीं बजा सकता. स्टूडियो म्यूजिशियन लाइव इसलिए नहीं बजा सकता क्योंकि वो डिटेल में फंसा हुआ है.
हाँ.
और लाइव म्यूजिशियन स्टूडियो म्यूजिशियन है कि वो डिटेल को इग्नोर कर रहा है. अब व्हेन I moved from studio to live, like I did a year of studio work with live coming in and out, and then I shifted to a year of touring. So उस दौरान what my transition was कि okay, now being a studio musician, I was more aware of my sound. Yeah. What my PA is going to output when I have my mic placed here or here. Do I run my guitar stereo? If I'm running it stereo, what's the latency on this side and that side? I did a very interesting thing this time. So in the Indigo show, I got a twin reverb as my tech rider, standard clean amp. वो मैंने रखा right next to me, put a 906 Sennheiser in front of it, and used my Pod Go, the lightest traveling one. Put in like basic signal chain for my drive sound. It's got the arch type clean amp, and I put in a nice IR to complement it. Sounds great. Quick plug-in, wireless, everything seamless. But then it's got this amp out, right? So I use that amp out, bypass the amp, use just the effects, and send it to the clean of the Fender.
Right.
So my drive running in stereo, whenever I used to turn the amp on, the amp out used to turn off. So every time from a clean sound, bright Fender, center, every time I used to switch to a drive sound, it used to just go stereo, and that amp used to be playing a through signal clean. So it's like my guitar's actual sound, like the sound of the wood was just shining through just a little bit.
That's really interesting.
And I learned this from Zulfi Bhai, actually, the panning situation.
Zulfi Bhai and Sherry Khatak, who's learned from him as well.
Absolutely.
They have some really interesting live rigs.
Yeah. You know? And the routing kind of made me realize that being a studio musician is important.
Yeah.
Because you need to know where you stand in the mix.
Yeah.
And where your guitar sounds, how your guitar sounds in the band.
Yeah.
And that's just not from a stage perspective. Stage perspective, where you hear the track that's going into my monitors, you'd be like, are you crazy? Are you okay? I feel like I've been deafened by the sound of a side fill right next to me on stage, but in my in-ears I'm listening to something completely different. But what I want it to sound like in front is different. That can only happen when you pay attention to your sound. So if my advice to live musicians would be is, sorry because our exchange rate, but invest in here. I mean, look at
Don't
this.
Cheap out.
Don't cheap out, man. It sounds great.
Yeah.
Tube amp always. It'll break your back, it'll break your wallet, but you'll enjoy it. And I feel like tube amps made me a better player. I'm sure you would agree.
I definitely think so. I mean, the response, right? It makes you modify the way you pick, how hard you pick, how light you pick.
And there's no gating. There's no like if you
there's no hiding anymore.
There's no hiding. If you make a mistake, its job is to show everyone, guys.
ये
हुआ है. सुन रहे हो? ये होता है. And ये मेरा tube पहला मेरा tube amp था वो Ibanez का TSA 15H, the tube screamer. So coming from Marshall solid state into that, I'm like, अबे मुझे तो बजाना ही नहीं आता. I've failed at muting altogether. So it was an entire process. Okay, I got it.
Yeah.
But yeah, that is one advice I would say to every live player out there is spend time with the metronome and spend time with your sound.
Hmm.
Sound primarily. Metronome, पता है काफ़ी चीज़ें, a lot of people will disagree with me. Click tracks are great, everything's great. But there's some certain energy on stage that when the tempo goes up,
Yeah.
that someone's taking it up and it's creating this atmosphere. It's important from
Yeah.
time to time. You should have the ability to do both.
Yeah. And I mean, when you're on stage, because, like, for example, Rahat mein itne log hain, is there a point person that you're always like, is it the drummer? Is it, who is it
So-
that you're trying to lock to
तो
keep
हमारे
on track?
स्टेजेस भी हैं ना, इट्स एक्चुअली वेरी फनी, मेरी मुझसे गलती हुई थी. स्टेजेस होते हैं बड़े हमारे, तो हमारा फोकल पर्सन होता है राशिद भाई, आर सैक्सोफोन प्लेयर राशिद अली खान, excellent saxophone player. He's been working with Nusrat Sahab as well. And he is the guy who basically sets the key. So हमारी major keys E flat, G sharp, F sharp, इस तरह की keys हैं. वो एक note बजाते हैं, ठीक है, like just, and that's only heard in our monitors, not to the audience.
Right.
उससे सबको पता चल जाता है कि कौन सा गाना start हो रहा है.
अच्छा.
तो he usually does that direction. जब fusion act होता है शारून करता है, like he's got the bow in his hand, so it's just like this. And like हम शारून को भी बड़ा तंग करते हैं इस बात पे. But this one time, I think it was Manchester in 21. And so 3 गाने start होते हैं A flat से, ठीक है, और ओरेपिया भी स्टार्ट होता है, दिल तो बच्चा है जी भी स्टार्ट होता है, और राशिद साहब ने वहाँ से ए फ्लैट बजा दिया. मेरे पास 3 ऑप्शन थे ना.
अब यहाँ से आगे
यहाँ से अब क्या करूँ? And I'm just like looking at Kishore bhai, and Kishore was like, ओरेपिया. And the stage is huge, right? And like he's sitting over there and he's like, ओरेपिया. I'm like, अच्छा दिल तो बच्चा है जी. I start playing it, bro. I started playing it. I'm like, everyone in the band's like, hey, yo, kya ho gaya? And I'm like, oh shit. I'm like, bhai, I'm out of the band. After this, I'm out. But then they also realized, they were like, I mean, what are we testing him on? To know the song that we're thinking of, which is in the same key, same scale, same chord structure. So that's on me. But like, नहीं, अब set list बनाते हैं.
हाँ, like क्या कहते हैं, telepathy भी सीखनी पड़ेगी.
है, ज़रूरी है, बहुत ज़रूरी है, एक फीचर आपको सीखना पड़ता है. बट ये केमिस्ट्री है ना, पता है, स्टेज पे बजा के आ ही जाती है.
हो जाता है, हाँ.
आपस में आपको पता चलता है, ओह, so that member of the band is going into that section. And the best approach to it is, कोई अगर कोई चीज़ कर रहा है ना, support it. अच्छा साउंड करेगा. कोशिश करो and listen more. Play less. I try to do that.
That's definitely one of the best pieces of advice even I've got, to listen, to make sure whatever you're playing is adding to it.
And जगह कहाँ बन रही है आपकी? What, like I said, in the mix, where is your, and also guitarists, sorry, once again, I'm saying very mean things, but control your own volume, man.
Yeah.
Like, I personally have never told
you know who we're talking to right now.
I personally have never told the engineer at the desk कि मेरा सोलो है ना, तो बढ़ा देना. नहीं, मैं चाहता हूँ आपके पास फ्लैट हो, इतना सिग्नल हो, EQ भी मैंने किया हुआ है, आप front of house सुन रहे हो, आप front of house के हिसाब से EQ कर लो, that's up to you. But I EQ my tone enough to match with my band's tones enough that he doesn't have to mess with it.
Right. And then solos, you're already boosting.
I want the boost, I'll have it. And that makes your guitar respond differently. It opens up a lot of different avenues. You can't just rely on a drive to just have more gain so you have longer sustain. Control your own volume, be more dynamic. Use the volume knob on your guitar. It's very underrated.
Oh yes.
Nobody just rolls back to a clean tone anymore. Everyone's just like switching it off, man. Tube screamer.
मैं तो अभी भी यही करता हूँ.
हाँ, clean tone असल है ही वो कि आपने gain signal बढ़ा है, थोड़ी सी hiss भी आ रही है. Doesn't matter. That just at the edge of breakup, and when you swoop that in, it's like a completely different feeling. So definitely guitarists have to.
Don't cheap out on guitar parts.
On guitar parts. Nice 250k parts. That's all you need.
Yeah. I like 500 also.
Oh yes, of course.
मतलब और range थोड़ी.
Full range. वो क्लैप्टन वाला है ना, mid boost वाला एक आता है.
हाँ.
वो भी लगवाना है मुझे. वो भी बड़ा interesting है. Active है, but बड़े मजे.
हमें लगता है एक पूरा separate episode करना होगा सिर्फ gear talk के ऊपर.
Yeah, man. Definitely.
No, this has been a lot of fun
Absolutely.
to hear from you, and it's been a while since we hung out.
Yeah, absolutely.
And,
And thank you for having me, man. It felt really good. Felt like I was saying a lot of stuff that was like just coming off of me. Experiences,
that's what we want. That's what we want.
I'm glad I could be a part of this.
बहुत लोगों ने आपको स्टेज पे देखा होगा. I'm sure they
I
must
hope
have
so.
wondered कि who's this
लंबे
skinny
बालों,
guy
skinny guy.
who's shredding on the guitar. इसके बारे में कुछ पता नहीं है. You know, but hopefully you.
I'm a ghost, guys. I'm a ghost. I'm a hidden talent, maybe. I don't know. Hidden attempt of a talent. That's it.
But yeah, thanks for watching. And if you're around anywhere where Rahat Fateh Ali, Ali Azmat are playing, yeah, Ali Tariq, check them out because you'll see him.
Absolutely.
And we'll see you next time. Take care and leave your comments, subscribe, all the usual stuff. Thank you.
Thank you.